Thank you.
But we conceive it as enabling choices. And I think it enables choices in two ways. It enables choices by these countries working for a region with the attributes that enable choices. And it also enables choices by virtue of the practical work that we seek to do together, sometimes through all four in you know the work streams that Jai described, sometimes collaboration, whether it's in the Pacific where Australia and Japan or Australia and India might work together in a particular country. This project is a good one for you to do, this is a project we'll do, this is what we've done, that sort of practical cooperation. So I don't feel the dissonance that I know some commentators feel, and that is underpinning a couple of the questions, as between the different architectures, because as an Australian, the region in which we live demands the engagement at multiple levels in multiple contexts. You know, we are the first dialogue partner of ASEAN, so our commitment to ASEAN centrality is historic and real, but it is also geographic. And we do not see our engagement with our friends and partners up here on the stage as doing anything other than enhancing that.
Thank you. Secretary Blinken, ASEAN centrality. India also has its own neighbours who it has to take into account, their views, their positions. Is there a time to, just taking this question forward, are we creating enough mechanisms to engage with these countries? We are 4 big countries in the region, in the periphery, as Teesta mentioned. So what is the mechanism to reach out, to take them along, to sometimes respond to anxieties? You are going to create ripples, and perhaps also the second question of Kirit Beer on connectivity and congruence within the Quad.
Let me start with coming back to the first question and just adding to what Penny said, I think very, very eloquently. Our proposition is not to say to countries in the region, you have to choose. Our proposition is to offer a choice, to offer an affirmative alternative. And the more we're able to do that, and do that in practical ways, I think the more cohesion you're going to see throughout the region. And as we've already discussed, in a number of very practical areas that actually answer the needs of countries in different parts of the region, that's exactly what the Quad is doing. Second, to Penny's point, and I think this is very important, we really look at this as variable geometry, which is to say there are different collections of countries, some in formal alliances, some in looser partnerships, some working together on a bilateral basis, some in slightly larger groupings. And the idea really is to make sure that we're fit for purpose for any particular challenge. And so it may be that the Quad can focus on certain things where the particular attributes of our countries brought together make sense. There are other places where different groupings of countries, whether in existing alliances or new partnerships that we form, make the most sense because it addresses the particular interests or particular attributes that those countries can bring to the table. So I think you have to think of it that way. This is not a rigid thing. And that's, I think, the mindset that the 4 of us have. Although now maybe it's the 5 of us. I think, Samir, you're now an honorary member. Maybe we're the sort of the 5th Beatle, as it were. So that's the approach that we're taking. And the other thing I think is important to understand is this is an ongoing conversation. And one of the strengths that we have is, and we just had a meeting over breakfast, but it's just picking up a conversation that's happening virtually all the time in some fashion among the 4 of us or among some subset of the 4 of us. And that also gives it great power because there's tremendous continuity. And what we're working on most now is translating the vision that we brought to this into very concrete, practical things that address very concrete, practical needs of countries throughout the region.
Would you guys have a WhatsApp group? Okay, no, I'm sorry, that is not a question. Minister Hayashi, your responses to ASEAN and...
All has been said. I don't want to add anything on those comments already made, but is this a group or what? You know, this is a kind of, not a band like the Beatles. You know, the member is fixed and they always play together in 10 years. But this is more like a more kind of soft group, so that even within the Beatles, Paul McCartney can release the album by solo, and then, you know, so yeah, so those are the things, you know, that could be a band, but everybody is really one have a relation with, you know, that other band, other musicians. So as for ASEAN, we have a 50th anniversary for ASEAN, so and that information we can share with four of us here, so that any idea relating to that could be I can absorb from those three friends here. So those are the situations we are facing, and it's very nice to talk all these issues surrounding the area, because we have a trust between four of us, and the trust for like I said at the beginning, the same values and same values such as democracy, freedom, and everything. So without worrying about those big conditions, we can really freely talk within this and communicate. So that's the only things that I would like to add.
Dr. Jaishankar?
Which part, the Beatles part or the...
Go ahead. I mean, you always come up with interesting inputs. But no, the two questions that were posed, ASEAN and in our context, perhaps India's own neighbors, and of course, the whole challenge of offering choices, as Secretary Blinken mentioned, that are we able to give countries more agency by offering more choices, or are we still sending them to the same shop?
No, I think we do offer more choices. We do collectively offer something different. My own sense over this last, especially after 2017, when I look at individual countries in Southeast Asia, or I've just come back from actually the Pacific islands, that countries are interested. Many of them, by the way, are themselves looking, you know, at Indo-Pacific as a changing theater. You know, how should they define their interests, advance their interests? So my sense is that the interest in the Quad, the enthusiasm for it, the willingness to work with it are growing. But at the end of the day, you know, the Quad is the Quad. The Beatles didn't take, you know, they did keep Pete Best out.
Correct.
So the serious point is that when we look at what can we do, and I'm again using maritime security as the easiest example, that there was a time, you know, after 2004, when we all worked together, we understood the value of what today we call the LMOA. That, you know, the moment we get logistics access to each other, that somewhere our ability to operate actually multiplies. And in the initial years, it was difficult. So when we talk about a changing world, among the changes is we ourselves have changed. You know, our attitude towards the world has changed, our understanding and comfort levels with each other has also changed. I do remember a period when even in our own system, and I would say frankly in each one of our systems, because it was something we hadn't done before, there was that hesitation. And what we are discovering, I mean, really with almost every Quad meeting, we have this kind of rolling conversation, and it's not a WhatsApp group. We have this rolling conversation, and you know, people keep throwing up ideas. Some work, some don't. Some are realized more practically, more quickly. So that's a kind of you know, I would say a very easy, practical arrangement that this has come about. So I don't, I'm very uncomfortable with sharp definitions. You do this, you don't do this, you are for this, you are against this. I think, it's four countries who have decided that by working together that they would, they would naturally advance each other, our own national interests, but also do much good for the world.
So my final question to the panelists as we conclude. You started off responding to the tsunami, a major humanitarian actor at that time. Today we are facing 2 or 3 big crises at this particular moment: food, debt, climate. Is Quad doing enough? What should it be doing better? Let me start with Secretary Blinken and then come down the panel and close with you, Dr. Jaishankar.
Well, I think it's fair to say on one level, we're never doing enough because the demand is extraordinary. I think we're living in a time where there is a greater multiplicity of challenges than at any time, at least, than I've been engaged in these issues over 30 years. More complicated, more interconnected. So the demand is huge, and maybe the demand exceeds even the supply that we can bring. But precisely to the point that Jai was just making, one of the things that we're, I think, getting pretty good at is adapting quickly and looking quickly at what are the challenges that we really have to engage, and seeing how we can make the Quad a useful vehicle for doing that. In each of the areas you described, we are actually working together, taking action, certainly exchanging ideas, and as I said, in many cases trying to turn those into concrete initiatives. But the demand is great, and we have to respond to it. What's interesting right now, in this very moment, you have Quad countries that are also chairing in this moment the G7, the G20, APEC, and that too gives us an ability to amplify and as we're working and coordinating among each other, that also has the benefit of strengthening and making more cohesive the agendas of these other groups.
Minister Yashi?
Yeah, like Tony said, demand is always more than we can supply, I think, as of Quad. But like in case of Russia's aggression on Ukraine, right after that was 24th of February, but in March we had a summit video conference on Ukraine issues and concurred of we cannot accept this to destroy the international norm, such as never change the status quo by force. So, like those case shows that we can always communicate and confirm that we are on the front, we are on the same page for those issues, and then that makes more smooth carrying out of the every measures we can take. So that's still working in that way too. Yeah.
Minister Wong?
I think one of the greatest strengths of this grouping is, by virtue of what we do together, it enhances our capacity for collaboration. So we could, obviously there are existing work streams, they are practical and they are real, as both Tony and Yogi have said. We could always do more, and the need in a world that is increasingly disordered, as your conference explicates, is always greater. But this group does have a capacity to collaborate quite flexibly, in addition to what we might have announced and we'll try and deliver on. And I think for me, as a foreign minister in the smallest of the Quad members, that is extremely useful. And it is a real strength in this collaboration.
Dr. Jaishankar, final words.
Look, I obviously concur with my colleagues, and I think the more we do with each other, the more possibilities open up. To me, right now, there are 3 big issues that the world needs to address and the Quad needs to address, and Quad can address, can make a difference. One, more reliable and resilient supply chains. 2, the whole, the digital challenge, trust and transparency when it comes to technologies. How do we live a more secure digital existence? And 3rd, connectivity. And I do see these as three big issues, which in different ways the Quad needs to do together and also do with other countries. And I do expect that to be a greater part of our agenda.
So thank you very much for this very frank, friendly conversation this morning. I think that might be the good attribute for Quad: frank, friendly and flexible. I think that's what Minister Wong said, flexible. So frank, friendly, flexible and fun could be the takeaways from this wonderful conversation. Please join me in applauding the esteemed guests for the contribution. And let me turn it over to Shubh Soni to take us forward. We can just take a family photograph as typically done, and then we can.
Thank you so much. I would request everyone to please take their seats immediately post the photographs are done. I do see a lot of movement again, a lot of people standing, taking photographs. That's excellent. Do use the hashtag #DryCNR2023 and do tweet these out and put them out on social media with that hashtag. But I would request everyone to take their seats immediately after the photographs are done, because we swiftly move to the next session.
So you're looking at this big Quad huddle, the foreign ministers of India, Australia, United States of America and Japan. Very interesting conversations there. Remember, of course, some tongue-in-cheek comments also by our foreign minister, S. Jaishankar. Keep tracking all the latest on that, indiatoday.in. It's a big day today. I'm heading into a very short break. Thank you for staying tuned.
जैसे सबसे तेज आपकी टैगलाइन है, तो इसी तरह से सबसे तेज हमारी सरकार की लाइफलाइन है.
Leader must have a vision.
We will continue to work with the developing and the developed world for win-win solutions.
Nature had of course willed the survival of the fittest.
हम आतंकवाद के खिलाफ जीरो टॉलरेंस की पॉलिसी को अपनाए हुए हैं.
एक साल के अंदर राहुल कन्वर की कार जो होगी वो इलेक्ट्रिक की होगी.
There is a confrontation of competing visions.
रिलेशनशिप में घुसना आसान है, उसमें से निकलना मुश्किल. रिश्ता जोड़ना आसान है.
Union Bank of India. The all-new Red Dark Edition by Tata Motors.
Good morning and a warm welcome to India Today. I'm Paul Saha. These are the headlines we're tracking at the top of this hour. Rahul Gandhi criticizes India at Cambridge University, accuses the centre of spying on him, says Modi is hampering democracy in India. Quad huddle after G20 foreign ministers meet. Jaishankar chairs meet with Australia, Japan and the United States foreign ministers. China's Indo-Pacific moves top focus. US Secretary of State's big message to India, Adani Hindenburg, is a private issue and it won't affect the relationship between the United States and India. Also says China, COVID lab leak, a possibility.
These are private matters concerning private companies, private citizens, and they don't affect the relationship between the United States and India, the government to government, and the work we're doing both directly bilaterally, but also here at the G20 in support of India's leadership.
Days after Yediyurappa, Modi Bonhomi, BJP bangs on Lingayat strongman. Yediyurappa likely to lead BJP's Karnataka campaign.
Prime Minister taunts opposition after Northeast win. Roars, opposition wants me dead, but the people want me to stay. Says the opposition is witnessing the lotus bloom.
वो कहते हैं मर जा मोदी, देश कह रहे हैं मत जा मोदी, मत जा.
Our top focus this morning, Rahul Gandhi has once again criticised India on foreign soil. The Congress Member of Parliament, who delivered a speech at the Cambridge University on March 1st, launched an attack on Prime Minister Modi's Sarkar on several issues, but also slammed India. He claimed that India is under attack. He also raised the Pegasus issue, claiming that he was spied on by the government. Now, this information, according to him, was shared by senior intelligence officials to him. Now, Rahul also asserted that minorities, the press and the opposition are under attack in India, and that the grand old party, the Congress, is trying to defend it. Taking a jibe at Prime Minister Modi, he said that Modi is imposing his ideas on India and that the Prime Minister is in India.
Capture and control of media and the judiciary, surveillance and intimidation. I myself had Pegasus on my phone. Large number of politicians have Pegasus on my phone, on their phone. I've been called by intelligence officers who tell me, listen, please be careful what you're saying on the phone, because we are sort of recording this stuff. So this is a constant pressure that we feel. Cases on opposition. I've got number of criminal libel cases for things that, you know, should under no circumstances be criminal libel cases, but that's the story, right? And that's what we are trying to defend. As I'm entering Kashmir, the security guys come to me and say, listen, we need to talk to you. So what do you need to say? And they say, well, look, the thing is, you can't walk in Kashmir, right? It's not a good idea. We're walking 3 days, and we're walking 3 days in the roughest districts. So you can't walk in Kashmir, it's a bad idea. So I'm like, why can't I walk in Kashmir? And they're like, well, because you'll get hand grenades thrown on you. So now I'm responsible for 120 people I'm walking with, right? So I'm like, look, let me go and have a little word with them. And so I go and have a little word with them and say, look, they're telling us they're going to get hand grenades thrown at us. And they're like, okay. And I was like, frankly, I want to walk. I mean, you know, if we get hand grenades, we get hand grenades. So they're like, yeah, we should all walk. And so we decided we're going to walk. The institutional framework, which is required for a democracy, parliament, a free press, the judiciary, just the idea of mobilization, just the idea of moving around, these are all getting constrained. So we are facing an attack on the basic structure of Indian democracy, right? Here you can see that picture. That picture is taken in front of Parliament House, and that's where a whole bunch of opposition members of Parliament were just standing there talking about certain issues, and we were just locked up and put in jail. And that's happened 3 or 4 times, right? And it's happened relatively violently. That's just an example. And you've also heard of the attack on minorities, the attack on the press. So you get a sense of what is going on.
Manikam Tagore of the Congress Party is now joining me over the phone line right now. You heard Rahul Gandhi over there, of course, speaking at Cambridge University on March 1st. Mr. Tagore, he's made some very sensational claims over there, saying that it is under Prime Minister Modi that democracy is under attack, that he's being spied upon, and intelligence officials are telling him not to speak over the phone because he's being tapped.
Yeah. This is the truth he has been saying, and we can see it from every quarter that the parliament, opposition leaders as well as opposition party workers, all undergoing the same treatment. And it has been the parliament, they don't allow us to speak, and when we wanted to raise the important issue, they don't want that issue debated. When we raise that issue, it has been expunged. This is happening. This is truth only. He is speaking about the truth in Cambridge. It is nothing new to us, but it is happening. But we are having a difficult time to get it into the mainstream media because a lot of pressure is on the mainstream media to report this back also. And Mr. Gandhi has been raising these issues and he has been speaking about the Pegasus issue. The Parliament whole session, the Parliament winter session, previous winter session got disturbed because of that Pegasus issue, and government has not given a word about it. Just kept mum. And
that individuals have gone to the Supreme Court with, as Mr. Tagore. The fact is that is Mr. Rahul Gandhi, it's one thing to attack your political opponent, to attack Modi Sarkar. It's one thing to attack the idea of India itself on foreign soil, sir.
Nobody is attacking the idea of India. Don't twist the thing. Don't be the BJP spokesperson. Speak like an anchor.
No, I'm not being a BJP spokesperson, sir. It's my question to you. It's my question to you. You can respond.
You ask the question. You allow me to answer. When you ask a question like a BJP spokesman, I'll call you as a BJP spokesperson. Because BJP, what is happening in the parliament? What Mr. Gandhi is telling about it? He is saying that democracy is a danger. That is not attack on India. It is attack on democracy in India. You need to understand it. You can't twist like a BJP spokesman. That's all I'm saying it. These words BJP spokesperson uses. An anchor like you should not use that word. It should not, BJP fellows should not influence you. That only I'm saying to you. You have the right to ask the question. I have the right to answer also. We are very clear as political party, as responsible opposition leaders. We are in the parliament. When we raise the issue, we have not been allowed to speak, and when at last we are allowed to speak also, it has been expunged. That's truth.
He's also, Mr. Tagore, he's also gone on to say at the Cambridge University that Prime Minister Modi calls Sikhs, Christians, Muslims second-class citizens. When did he say that, sir?
You have to understand it. Mr. Modi is treating others in a different way. That we have to understand it. That only he is saying it. You can't just say a thing that like whatever Mr. Modi is doing is very great thing. That's the BJP workers' word. Mr. Modi, for small things also, petty things also he speaks. He speaks about an umbrella on that day. Whether he spoke about a Pegasus here, whether he spoke about the Adani issue in the parliament. No. When we asked the question, 5 questions to him, he was speaking about all other Nehru, Gandhi, other things that others, surnames. Nobody asked him.
Mr. Tagore, thank you so much for speaking to India Today. That is, of course, Manikam Tagore of the Congress Party, Member of Parliament, speaking exclusively to India Today. Mosmi Singh, my colleague, is also joining me live at the moment. Mosmi, this is, of course, going to create a lot of furor. Some of the statements that Rahul Gandhi has made again at a foreign university, attacking Modi Sarkar, attacking the idea of India, saying that democracy is under threat in India.
Absolutely, Paulami. I think Rahul Gandhi has just gone on to repeat what he said in Parliament and on foreign soil, and that's why the BJP would be quick to lap up this entire issue. We do believe that the IND minister is going to give a reaction shortly, so we can see a very perturbed Manikam Tagore when you ask that question. But the Congress, in fact, has drawn a line, and this is a very attacking line that Rahul Gandhi has chosen to, escalate on foreign soil. He continued his tirade against Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Very, very sharp words those. He started off with his 40 minutes lecture with the fact that the idea of democracy is being destroyed in India. And when he ended it, the question that was being asked, to which he responded that Sikhs and Christians are being treated as second-grade citizens, is when they asked whether Prime Minister Narendra Modi had really done anything good for the country. Did he feel that he made any good moves? And Rahul Gandhi said, whatever good he might have done, I could say that it's about opening bank accounts or gas cylinders to women. But the foundation of it is actually attacking the architecture of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is destroying that. So on foreign
Apologies for cutting you short over there. The Prime Minister is speaking and addressing a webinar and elaborating on this year's budget and how it will help tourism.
देश में कॉम्पिटिटिव स्पिरिट से, चैलेंज रूट से देश के कुछ टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन को डेवलपमेंट के लिए सिलेक्ट करने की बात कही गई है। ये चैलेंज हर स्टेक होल्डर को साथ मिलकर प्रयास करने के लिए प्रेरित करेगा। बजट में टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन, इसके एक होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट पर भी फोकस किया गया है। इसके लिए अलग अलग स्टेक होल्डर्स को हम कैसे एंगेज कर सकते हैं, इस पर विस्तार से चर्चा होनी चाहिए। साथियों, जब हम टूरिज्म की बात करते हैं तो कुछ लोगों को लगता है कि एक फैंसी सा शब्द है, समाज के हाई इनकम ग्रुप से और उन्हीं लोगों को रिप्रेजेंट करता है। लेकिन भारत के संदर्भ में देखें तो टूरिज्म का दायरा बहुत बड़ा है, बहुत पुराना है। सदियों से हमारे यहां यात्राएं होती रही है। ये हमारे सांस्कृतिक सामाजिक जीवन का हिस्सा रहा है, और वो भी जब संसाधन नहीं थे, यातायात की व्यवस्था ही नहीं थी, बहुत कठिनाई होती थी, तब भी कष्ट उठाकर लोग यात्राओं पर निकल पड़ते थे। चार धाम यात्रा हो, 12 ज्योतिर्लिंग की यात्रा हो, 51 शक्तिपीठ की यात्रा हो, ऐसी कितनी ही यात्राएं हैं हमारे आस्था के स्थलों को जोड़ती थी। हमारे यहां होने वाली यात्राओं ने देश की एकता को मजबूत करने का भी काम किया है। देश के कितने ही बड़े बड़े शहरों की पूरी अर्थव्यवस्था, उस पूरे जिले की पूरी अर्थव्यवस्था यात्राओं पर ही निर्भर थी। यात्राओं की इस पुरातन परंपरा के बावजूद दुर्भाग्य ये रहा कि इन स्थानों पर समय के अनुकूल सुविधाएं बढ़ाने पर ध्यान नहीं दिया गया। पहले सैकड़ों वर्षों की गुलामी और फिर आजादी के बाद के दशकों में इन स्थानों की राजनीतिक उपेक्षा ने देश का बहुत नुकसान किया। अब आज का भारत इस स्थिति को बदल रहा है। जब यात्रियों के लिए सुविधाएं बढ़ती हैं तो कैसे यात्रियों में आकर्षण बढ़ता है, उनकी संख्या में भारी वृद्धि होती है, और ये भी हम देश में देख रहे हैं। जब वाराणसी में काशी विश्वनाथ धाम का पुनर्निर्माण नहीं हुआ था तो उस समय साल में 70-80 लाख के आसपास ही लोग मंदिर के दर्शन के लिए आते थे। काशी विश्वनाथ धाम का पुनर्निर्माण होने के बाद पिछले साल वाराणसी जाने वाले लोगों की संख्या 7 करोड़ को पार कर गई है। इसी तरह जब केदार घाटी में पुनर्निर्माण का काम नहीं हुआ था तो वहां भी सालाना 4-5 लाख लोग ही दर्शन के लिए आते थे। लेकिन पिछले साल 15 लाख से ज्यादा श्रद्धालु बाबा केदार के दर्शन के लिए गए। अगर मेरा गुजरात का पुराना अनुभव है, वहां का भी अनुभव आपसे शेयर करता हूं। गुजरात में पावागढ़ करके एक तीर्थ क्षेत्र है बड़ौदा के पास। जब वहां का पुनर्निर्माण नहीं हुआ था, पुरानी हालत थी, तो मुश्किल से 2000, 5000, 3000 इतनी संख्या में लोग आते थे। लेकिन वहां जीर्णोद्धार हुआ, कुछ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बना, सुविधाएं बनी, तो उस पावागढ़ मंदिर के पुनर्निर्माण के बाद, नवनिर्माण के बाद करीब करीब 80,000 लोग वहां औसतन आते हैं। यानी सुविधाएं बढ़ी तो इसका सीधा प्रभाव यात्रियों की संख्या पर पड़ा। टूरिज्म को बढ़ाने के लिए उसके सराउंडिंग जो चीजें होती वो भी बढ़ने लग गई है, और ज्यादा संख्या में लोगों के आने का अर्थ है स्थानीय स्तर पर कमाई के ज्यादा अवसर, रोजगार स्वरोजगार के ज्यादा मौके। अब देखिए, दुनिया की सबसे ऊंची प्रतिमा स्टैच्यू ऑफ यूनिटी का भी उदाहरण देगा। ये प्रतिमा बनने के बाद 1 साल के भीतर ही 27 लाख लोग उसे देखने के लिए पहुंचे। ये दिखाता है कि भारत के विभिन्न स्थलों में अगर सिविल एमिनिटीज बढ़ाई जाए, वहां डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी अच्छी हो, होटल हॉस्पिटल अच्छे हो, गंदगी का नामो निशान ना हो, बेहतरीन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हो, तो भारत के टूरिज्म सेक्टर में कई गुना वृद्धि हो सकती है। साथियों, मुझे आपसे बात करते हुए अहमदाबाद शहर में कांकरिया तालाब है, उस कांकरिया लेक प्रोजेक्ट के विषय में भी कुछ करने का मन करता है। अब ये कांकरिया लेक प्रोजेक्ट शुरू होने से पहले वहां आमतौर पर लोग जाते नहीं थे, वैसे वहां से गुजरना पड़े तो गुजरे, लेकिन वहां कोई जाता ही नहीं था। हमें वहां न सिर्फ लेक का रिडेवलपमेंट किया, बल्कि फूड स्टॉल्स में काम करने वालों को स्किल डेवलपमेंट भी किया। आधुनिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के साथ हमने वहां स्वच्छता पर भी बहुत जोर दिया। अब कल्पना कर सकते हैं कि आज वहां एंट्री फी होने के बावजूद भी औसतन प्रतिदिन 10,000 लोग मुलाकात करते हैं। ऐसे ही तरीकों से हर टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन अपना एक रेवेन्यू मॉडल भी विकसित कर सकता है। साथियों, ये वो समय है जब हमारे गांव भी टूरिज्म का केंद्र बन रहे हैं। बेहतर होते इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के कारण हमारे दूर सुदूर के गांव अब टूरिज्म पर के मैप पर आ रहे हैं। केंद्र सरकार ने बॉर्डर किनारे पर बसे जो गांव है, वहां वाइब्रेंट बॉर्डर विलेज योजना शुरू की है। ऐसे में होम स्टे, छोटे होटल, छोटे रेस्टोरेंट हो, ऐसे अनेक बिजनेस के लिए लोगों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा सपोर्ट करने का काम हम सबको मिलकर के करना है। साथियों, आज एक बात मैं भारत आ रहे फॉरेन टूरिस्ट के संदर्भ में भी बताऊंगा। आज जिस तरह दुनिया में भारत के प्रति आकर्षण बढ़ रहा है, भारत आने वाले विदेशी टूरिस्टों की संख्या भी बढ़ रही है। पिछले साल जनवरी में सिर्फ 2 लाख विदेशी टूरिस्ट आए थे, जबकि इस साल जनवरी में 8 लाख से ज्यादा विदेशी टूरिस्ट भारत आए। विदेश से जो टूरिस्ट भारत आ रहे हैं, हमें उन्हें भी प्रोफाइल करके अपना टारगेट ग्रुप तय करना होगा। विदेश में रहने वाले वो लोग जिनमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा खर्च करने की क्षमता होती है, हमें उन्हें ज्यादा से ज्यादा संख्या में भारत लाने के लिए विशेष रणनीति बनाने की आवश्यकता है। ऐसे टूरिस्ट भले ही कम दिन भारत में रहेंगे, लेकिन ज्यादा राशि खर्च करके जाएंगे। आज जो विदेशी टूरिस्ट भारत आते हैं, वो औसतन $1,700 खर्च करते हैं, जबकि अमेरिका में इंटरनेशनल ट्रैवलर औसतन $2,500 और ऑस्ट्रेलिया में करीब $5,000 खर्च करते हैं। भारत में भी हाई स्पेंड टूरिस्ट को ऑफर करने के लिए बहुत कुछ है। हर राज्य को इस सोच के साथ भी अपनी टूरिज्म पॉलिसी में बदलाव करने की जरूरत है। अब जैसे मैं आपको एक और उदाहरण दूंगा। सामान्य तौर पर कहा जाता है कि सबसे ज्यादा किसी स्थान पर रुकने वाला जो टूरिस्ट होता है, वो बर्ड वॉचर होता है। ये लोग महीनों महीनों किसी देश में डेरा डाले रहते हैं। भारत में इतने भांति भांति प्रकार के पक्षी हैं, हमें ऐसे पोटेंशियल टूरिस्ट को भी टारगेट करके अपनी नीतियां बनानी होगी। साथियों, इन सब प्रयासों के बीच आपको टूरिज्म सेक्टर की एक बेसिक चुनौती पर भी काम करना है। यह है हमारे यहां प्रोफेशनल टूरिस्ट गाइड की कमी। गाइड्स के लिए स्थानीय कॉलेजों में सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स हो, कंपटीशन हो। बहुत अच्छे नौजवान इस प्रोफेशन में आगे आने के लिए मेहनत करेंगे और हमें शानदार अनेक भाषा बोलने वाले अच्छे टूरिस्ट गाइड मिलेंगे। उसी प्रकार से डिजिटल टूरिस्ट गाइड भी अब तो अवेलेबल है, टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके भी कर सकते हैं। किसी एक विशेष टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन में जो गाइड काम कर रहे हैं, उनकी एक स्पेसिफिक ड्रेस या वर्दी भी होनी चाहिए। इससे लोगों को पहली नजर में ही पता चला जाएगा कि सामने वाला जो व्यक्ति है वो टूरिस्ट गाइड है और वो हमारी इस काम में मदद करेगा। हमें ये याद रखना होगा कि जब कोई भी टूरिस्ट किसी स्थान पर पहुंचता है तो उसके मन में सवालों का भंडार भरा होता है। वो अनेक सवालों के तत्काल समाधान चाहता है। ऐसे में गाइड उन सभी सवालों के जवाब खोजने में उनकी मदद कर सकता है। साथियों, मुझे विश्वास है इस वेबिनार के दौरान आप टूरिज्म से जुड़े हर पहलू पर गंभीरता से विचार करेंगे। आप बेहतर सॉल्यूशन के साथ सामने आएंगे। और मैं एक और बात कहना चाहता हूं, जैसे टूरिज्म के लिए हम मान लीजिए हर राज्य एक या दो बहुत ही अच्छे टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन पर जोर लगाता है, तो एक शुरुआत कैसे कर सकते हैं? हम तय करें कि भाई स्कूल से बच्चे जो टूरिस्ट के रूप में निकलते हैं, हर स्कूल टूरिस्ट करते ही है, यात्रा के लिए निकलते ही है, 2 दिन 3 दिन के कार्यक्रम बनाते हैं। तो आप तय कर सकते हैं कि भाई फलाने डेस्टिनेशन में शुरू में पर डे 100 लोग स्टूडेंट्स आएंगे, फिर पर डे 200 आएंगे, फिर पर डे 300 आएंगे, फिर पर डे 1000 आएंगे। अलग अलग स्कूल के आए वो खर्चा करते ही हैं। यहां जो लोग हैं उनको लगेगा कि इतनी बड़ी संख्या में लोग आ रहे हैं, चलो ये व्यवस्था खड़ी करो, ये दुकान खड़ी करो, पानी की व्यवस्था करो, अपने आप शुरू हो जाएगा। अगर मान लीजिए हमारे सभी राज्य तय करें कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट के अष्टलक्ष्मी हमारे 8 राज्य हैं, हम हर वर्ष 8 यूनिवर्सिटी हर राज्य में तय करें और हर यूनिवर्सिटी नॉर्थ ईस्ट के एक राज्य में 5 दिन 7 दिन टूर करेगी, दूसरी यूनिवर्सिटी दूसरे राज्य में टूर करेगी, तीसरी डेस्टिनेशन टूर। आप देखिए आपके राज्य में 8 यूनिवर्सिटी ऐसी होगी जहां के हमारे युवकों को नॉर्थ ईस्ट के 8 राज्यों का पूरा आता पता होगा। उसी प्रकार से आजकल वेडिंग डेस्टिनेशन एक बहुत बड़ा बिजनेस हुआ है, बहुत बड़ा टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन बन रहा है। विदेश से तो लोग जाते हैं, क्या हमारे राज्यों में वेडिंग डेस्टिनेशन के रूप में स्पेशल पैकेज घोषित कर सकते हैं? और मैं तो कहूंगा कि हमारे देश में एक वातावरण बनाना चाहिए कि गुजरात के लोगों को लगना चाहिए कि भाई 2024 में अगर हमारे यहां से शादियों के लिए वेडिंग डेस्टिनेशन होगा तो तमिलनाडु में होगा और तमिल पद्धति से हम शादी करवाएंगे। घर में 2 बच्चे हैं तो कोई सोचेगा कि एक हम असमिया पद्धति से शादी करवाना चाहते हैं, दूसरे की हम पंजाबी पद्धति से शादी करवाना चाहते हैं। वेडिंग डेस्टिनेशन वहां बना देंगे। आप कल्पना कर सकते हैं, वेडिंग डेस्टिनेशन इतना बड़ा कारोबार की संभावना है। हमारे देश का टॉप क्लास के लोग विदेश जाते होंगे, लेकिन मिडिल क्लास, अपर मिडिल क्लास के लोग आजकल वेडिंग डेस्टिनेशन पे जाते हैं और उसमें भी जब नयापन होता है तो उनकी जिंदगी में यादगार हो जाता है। हमने इस दिशा को अभी तक उपयोग नहीं कर रहे हैं, कुछ इन्हे गुने स्थान अपने तरीके से करते हैं। उसी प्रकार से कॉन्फ्रेंसेस, आज दुनिया के लोग कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए आते हैं। हम ऐसा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर तैयार करें, पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप से करें, लोगों को कहें, जमीन की कुछ ऐसी व्यवस्थाएं करें तो कॉन्फ्रेंसेस के लिए लोग आएंगे तो वो होटल में भी रुकेंगे, हॉस्पिटैलिटी इंडस्ट्री भी बढ़ेगी, यानी एक पूरा इकोसिस्टम डेवलप हो जाएगा। उसी प्रकार से स्पोर्ट्स टूरिज्म भी बहुत क्षेत्र है, हम इनवाइट करें। अब देखिए अभी कतर में फुटबॉल मैच हुआ पूरे दुनिया का, कतर की इकोनॉमी में बहुत बड़ा प्रभाव हुआ उसका, दुनिया भर के लोग आए, लाखों लोग आए। हम छोटे से शुरू करें, बहुत बड़ा हो सकता है। हमें इन तरीकों को ढूंढना होगा, उसके लिए फिर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, शुरू में लोग आए ना आए, हम अपने स्कूल के बच्चों, कॉलेज के बच्चों, हमारे सरकार की मीटिंगों के लिए वहां जाना, अगर हम अपने एक डेस्टिनेशन को महत्व देना शुरू करेंगे तो अपने आप और लोग भी आना शुरू करेंगे और फिर वहां की व्यवस्थाएं बनेगी। मैं चाहता हूं कि भारत में कम से कम 50 टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन ऐसे हमने डेवलप करने चाहिए कि दुनिया के हर कोने में पता हो कि अगर भारत जाते हैं तो इस जगह पे तो जाना ही चाहिए। हर राज्य को गर्व होना चाहिए कि दुनिया के इतने देश के लोग मेरे यहां आते हैं। दुनिया के इतने देशों को हम टारगेट करेंगे। हम वहां की एम्बेसी को लिटरेचर भेजेंगे, वहां की एम्बेसी को हम कहेंगे कि देखिए आप टूरिस्टों के लिए मदद चाहते हैं तो हम ये मदद करते हैं। हमें पूरी व्यवस्था, हमारे जो टूर ऑपरेटर्स हैं उनसे भी मेरा आग्रह है कि आपको नए सिरे से सोचना होगा। हमें हमारी एप्स, हमारा डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी, इन सब को बहुत आधुनिक बनाना होगा। और हमारा कोई टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए जिसकी ऐप यूएन की सभी लैंग्वेजेज में ना हो और भारत की सभी लैंग्वेजेज में ना हो। अगर मैं सिर्फ अंग्रेजी और हिंदी में हमारी वेबसाइट बना देंगे तो संभव नहीं हो। इतना ही नहीं, हमारे टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन पर साइनेज सभी भाषाओं की होनी चाहिए। अगर तमिल का कोई सामान्य परिवार आया है, बस लेकर के चला है और वहां पर उसको तमिल में अगर साइनेज मिल जाते हैं तो वो बड़ी आसानी से पहुंच जाता है।
So that was, of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressing a webinar on how this year's budget can help the tourism sector. We're slipping into a very short break. Stay tuned. News and updates will continue on the other side.
India Today Conclave 2023, March 17th and 18th, New Delhi. Listen to Janvi Kapoor, Malaika Arora, Anita Sengupta, Abha Adams, Hajar Chena Ramani, Dr. Ruha Shadab. The India Moment.
Wali painting, a mural art form of Maharashtra, gives Aurangabad a facelift ahead of a G20 inception meeting. A group of 120 women painted non-stop for 6 hours to complete the artwork.
वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट शो करते हुए हम लोग ये जो प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे हैं वारली का, वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट वारली पेंटिंग जो है, जिसका रिकॉर्ड पहले पूना में था, उसको पूना के रिकॉर्ड को ब्रेक करते हुए, उसको चैलेंज करते हुए आज हम सब लड़कियां, वी आर 120 लेडीज हियर वर्किंग फॉर दिस वारली पेंटिंग टुडे। और इसका सबसे बड़ा क्रेडिट जो जाता है, जो मेरी बहुत अच्छी फ्रेंड है, वो है नंदिनी घोडेले। ये कॉन्सेप्ट जो जहाँ से आई है, वो लड़की ने, सर 21 इयर्स की लड़की है। दिस इज रियली अ मोटिवेशन टू ऑल द गर्ल्स ओवर हियर।
The work spread over 3,200 square feet will enter the India Book of Records 2024 in the social and cultural category. This painting breaks the earlier record of 3,050 square feet set by artists in Pune.
I congratulate all the dignitaries, those who have taken efforts, जिन्होंने इस इवेंट को एक सक्सेसफुल बनाया है, and congratulations to Aurangabad Municipal Corporation.
There were no professional artists among the 120 participants. They came from different professions like medicine, accountancy, and engineering. Bureau Report, India Today.
Welcome back. A day after the mega G20 foreign ministers meeting in the national capital, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar led the Quad huddle to discuss multiple global issues. Quad leaders vowed to work on counterterrorism and maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar announced the Maritime Security Working Group that is going to meet very soon in Washington, D.C. The Quad, or the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, comprises of 4 nations: the United States, India, Japan and Australia. The Quad's main focus this year will be to counter Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. In an exclusive interview with India Today, US State Secretary, in fact, Antony Blinken, stated that the Quad meeting will ensure a free, open and Indo-Pacific region. Not just that, Blinken also stated that the Russia-Ukraine war is a clear example for would-be aggressors that any act similar to that of war will not be tolerated by global economies.
Even as we're rightly focused on what is happening in Ukraine as a result of the Russian aggression, not just because it matters to Ukrainians and to Ukraine and to Europe, but because it matters to the entire world. The principles that underlie the entire international system that are necessary for trying to keep peace and stability that grew out of 2 world wars are being challenged, being aggressed along with Ukraine. And part of the reason that countries way beyond Europe are also so focused on this and are working to support Ukraine and deal with the challenge is because they know it could have an effect here. If we allow, with impunity, Russia to do what it's doing in Ukraine, then that's a message to would-be aggressors everywhere that they may be able to get away with it too.
I could answer the question in power terms and in influence terms. I could talk about the extent to which India is a critical power, a great power in the region, that there is no reshaping of the Indo-Pacific with the attributes that Australia would seek without India. I'd also make the point, and I think we've seen that in not only in how Jai engages with the world and his narrative around it, but also Prime Minister Modi. India is a civilization.
Live to the Global Investors Summit 2023 in Andhra Pradesh, which is just being inaugurated. You can see Chief Minister S. Jagan Reddy over there lighting the inaugural lamp over there, kick-starting this 2-day very important investor summit. Mukesh Ambani, you can see he's on stage as well. Top industry honchos are present at this 2-day summit, which is taking place in Visakhapatnam as we speak. A major event organized by the Andhra Pradesh government to attract corporate investment to the state of Andhra Pradesh. Remember, Visakhapatnam is the industrial hub of the state, and that is a Global Investors Summit which is being organized in order to attract more investment into the state. Close to about 100 crores has been spent by the Andhra Pradesh government in order to organize this 2-day event, this mega event. In fact, massive arrangements made on a war footing, in fact, for this Global Investors Summit, which is taking place at the Andhra University Engineering College grounds in Visakhapatnam. In fact, the summit is expected to be a great advantage for Visakhapatnam, which has emerged as the most important city in the state post the bifurcation of the state.
May the future of our wonderful state of Andhra Pradesh and also of all the esteemed guests who are here be as bright as this wonderful lamp. Thank you, Dr. Srijana Garu, for this auspicious start. వేదిక మీదకి వచ్చేసిన పెద్దలకి వారి కరకమలతో జ్యోతి ప్రజ్వలన జరిపించినందుకు ధన్యవాదాలు. Welcoming is a pleasant task. Now it's an honor to invite the Chief Secretary to the Government of Andhra Pradesh, Dr. K.S. Jawahar Reddy Garu, to welcome this august gathering.
Honorable Chief Minister for Andhra Pradesh, Sri Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy Garu, Honorable Ministers from the state of Andhra Pradesh, top industries, leaders of Indian industry, and the representatives of Indian industry, ambassadors, high commissioners, deputy ambassadors, representatives of various foreign missions in India, officers and advisors from Government of India, Government of Andhra Pradesh, various dignitaries, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Andhra Pradesh Global Investors Summit 2023. We are privileged to have you here in this beautiful state of Andhra Pradesh, where opportunities are limitless and prospects are endless.
So those are pictures of the Global Investors Summit 2023 that has now been kick-started in the state of Andhra Pradesh. We're slipping into a very short break. Stay tuned. News and updates will continue on the other side.
Achieved in recent years, and we are even more.
It's a very common question that I've seen people deliberating. So if you'd have the answer to that, why should one choose Ather?
Why should one choose Ather? Because that's the best, that's the safest electric scooter right now in the market. It's the most stable electric scooter right now in the market. It's the one that's been built and researched for the longest period, almost 10 years. We started work on the scooter in 2014, actually early 2013, late 2013, and we're here. What you see here is basically an outcome of all of that.
How many more do you plan to sell? What's the market share that you're looking to capture?
So I think we have finally been able to scale up our production to about 35,000 units a month. That's on capacity. Our supply chain still is scaling up. It's now doing about 16,000 units a month. And I'm confident of crossing about 25,000 units, almost 30,000 units a month by later this year, and fully utilizing this plant by either later this year or early next year. After that, we will be production constrained again, and which point we will start working on a new plant. So in about a year's time, we should utilize our full capacity.
So how does this translate into revenue and profitability?
By revenue, I think Ather will be outside of China. Ather will be the number 1 or number 2 electric two-wheeler manufacturer in a few months globally. And by profitability, I think we are still some time away from being profitable, while losses continue to narrow. But given the pace at which market is increasing, we have to continue investing in new capacity, we have to continue investing in new charging infrastructure, new product enhancements. So I think cash profitability is still, I'd say, not this year. It's still a year to work.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
It's the biggest interview from the G20 in an exclusive conversation with India today. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken broke his silence on the Adani-Hindenburg issue as well as the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, this comes amid Beijing accusing Washington of harming its own credibility after US intelligence agencies said that the COVID-19 pandemic was caused by a laboratory incident in China's Wuhan. Speaking on the Adani-Hindenburg case, Biden's state secretary, in fact, said that it is a private matter of India and does not affect India-US relationship. He further went on to say that his visit focuses on strengthening the strategic partnership between the United States and India. Listen in to this exclusive conversation with India Today's Geeta Mohan.
This is an India Today World exclusive. The most prominent voice from the G20 ministerial is joining us here on India Today today. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, many thanks for joining us and doing this.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
The G20 presidency has begun at a tumultuous time. There are so many differences. You've been speaking about it. We've heard various leaders at various press conferences address the same issue. But the bigger question over here is that despite all the conversations and heated exchanges that we've been hearing about, there still is no consensus on the Russia-Ukraine war, no consensus on the communique. Now, in that, I'd like to know how and why has the West failed in isolating Russia? Why do I say that? Because Russia is still in the room, and in fact, you actually met the Russian Foreign Minister, Lavrov.
So first, I think it's very clear in a variety of ways that Russia is isolated in terms of its aggression against Ukraine. Go back a couple of weeks ago, 141 countries, 3/4 of the United Nations, stood up in the General Assembly and voted for a resolution condemning Russia's aggression and calling for a just and durable peace in Ukraine. Here at the G20, the foreign ministers meeting, if you look at the chair's statement that was put out by India, it reflects on the part of 18 of the 20 countries, that is every country except for Russia and China, the very language that was used by the leaders in the Bali meetings just a few months ago in terms of what Russia is doing in Ukraine. So I think world opinion is very, very clear on this. And in the meetings today, I think it's also fair to say that a number of countries again called on Russia to end its aggression. And, you know, this is a concern not just for Ukraine, not just for countries in Europe. It's a concern for the entire world because the consequences of Russia's aggression are being felt around the world. People are feeling it in terms of higher energy prices, higher food prices, and countries are feeling it in a different way because there's been an assault not just on Ukraine, but on the principles at the heart of the United Nations Charter, principles that are necessary for trying to keep the peace around the world, like one country can't simply go and try and take over another, erase its borders, erase its identity. So I think it's very clear where the world is on this, and that was reflected here again in New Delhi.
But the aggression continues, and there is no stopping them. G20 has not been able to. US sanctions have not been able to. So when we talk about isolation, we're talking about absolute isolation of a country that is an aggressor. And that certainly doesn't seem to be the case here.
Well, I think if you look at what's actually happened, the Ukrainian people, with a lot of support from countries around the world, have actually stopped what Russia was trying to do. Russia was trying to erase Ukraine from the map, to absorb it into Russia, to make it so that it didn't exist anymore. That has failed, and it's failed because the Ukrainian people stood up and because so much of the world came to help Ukraine in defending itself. Since then, since that initial attempt to eliminate Ukraine as an independent country failed, Russia has been pushed back in Ukraine to the east and to the south. The Ukrainians have taken back more than 50% of the territory that Russia seized from it early on in the aggression. Unfortunately, tragically,
Russia's persisting. It's true, it hasn't stopped. But as it's doing that, it is suffering tremendously. President Putin has inflicted terrible damage, not only on Ukraine, but on his own country. Public accounts say that Russia has suffered 200,000 casualties, killed and wounded, in Ukraine. And he keeps throwing bodies into this war, a war of his own making. More than 1 million Russians have left the country.
Right.
They tend to be the most educated and most sophisticated in building a modern economy. 1,000 companies from around the world have left Russia. They're not doing business there because the reputational cost of doing business has gotten to be too great. So all of those things, as well as the sanctions and export controls, are having an increasingly heavy weight on Russia. But ultimately, yes, the objective is to get it to stop the aggression and to restore Ukraine's full sovereignty. And that requires that we continue to support Ukraine and continue to exert pressure on Russia.
And it will take time. But you're here in New Delhi, and concerns of New Delhi and India are a little different. We're talking about China here. Do you think, because of this war, the focus has shifted from China and Chinese aggression, whether it is against Taiwan, India, or for that matter, now we see Chinese spy balloons in American airspace? Is that a concern? How do you see America counter China, and how do you see America continue being a net security provider for the world?
On the contrary, I'm seeing two things. First, as I mentioned, even as so many countries are working to support Ukraine, they're also working together, including here at the G20, to address global problems of concern to people around the world. And I mentioned a few of them, from food insecurity to energy insecurity to climate to global health, including in the wake of COVID, to make sure that that doesn't happen again. At the same time, I actually think that what Russia has done in Ukraine has awakened other parts of the world to concerns about other would-be aggressors. And the very reason that so many countries beyond Europe are standing up against Russia's aggression is because they know that if we let that aggression stand with impunity, then other would-be aggressors might say, well, if Russia can get away with it, so can we, so can I. And that, I think, is a powerful motivator. At the same time, tomorrow we'll be meeting with our partners in the Quad, Australia, Japan, and India. And I'm very much looking forward to that, because we've done a lot of work to focus on issues of common concern to us in the Indo-Pacific. And the United States is deeply engaged throughout the Indo-Pacific with a shared goal that we have with India, with Japan, with Australia, but also with most of the countries in the region, and that is to make sure that we maintain a free, open, prosperous Indo-Pacific. And there are so many things that we're doing together to ensure that we're able to do that.
Talking about another concern that India has, there has been a lot of criticism when it comes to the Indian government with regards to certain American businessmen and short sellers who have come out with reports that have not gone down well with the government, particularly massive losses to one of India's top industrialists, Gautam Adani. And then George Soros coming out and saying that the Hindenburg report will lead to a democratic revival in India. Was this matter discussed with your Indian counterpart, Dr. Jaishankar? If so, what was your response? If not, could you weigh in on the matter?
It wasn't discussed, and I think for a very good reason. These are private matters concerning private companies, private citizens, and they don't affect the relationship between the United States and India, the government to government, and the work we're doing both directly bilaterally, but also here at the G20 in support of India's leadership. That's exactly what we focused on today, the work that we've been doing, and it's been quite extraordinary, in deepening and strengthening the strategic partnership between India and the United States. I think it's reaching unprecedented levels, and we look forward to demonstrating that further when Prime Minister Modi visits Washington in the coming time. And at the same time, today the focus was intensely on the very ambitious agenda that India has for the G20 and the support the United States is providing to that agenda.
There's another very important aspect of in the Indo-US cooperation, which is health, the health sector, COVID-19, but the prospects are grim when it comes to reports that are emerging now. The US Energy Department has concluded that COVID pandemic most likely arose from a laboratory leak. In that, you've had many agencies report to you, send out reports. What can we conclusively say that Beijing indeed is indulging in biological warfare?
There are some very distinct things here that it's important to be clear on. First, President Biden was determined from day one to get to the bottom of the origins of COVID-19, why it happened, how it happened, in order to enable us to make sure, to the greatest extent possible, that it doesn't happen again. And in doing that, he asked all of our intelligence agencies to focus their resources and their attention on this question. And what we have now, after extensive study, is some of our agencies and departments believing that COVID originated from a lab leak in Wuhan, others believing it's more likely that it originated at a animal market, also in Wuhan. None of the agencies being able to say conclusively that it was one or the other. And so the bottom line is we don't know conclusively, but of course the possibility that it originated in a lab is very clear and very real, and that's what some agencies think is more likely, again, not conclusively. But that's also separate from the question of whether this had anything to do with a biological weapon and anything to do with intentional actions by a country to develop it, use it, release it. And none of the agencies, to my knowledge, have found that.
But do you see biological warfare as a threat coming from China separately?
We have real concerns about the potential development and use of bioweapons in various places around the world. We've been working for years to try to ensure that that wouldn't happen. There's something called the Biological Weapons Convention that we're a strong adherent to, and at the same time we have programs around the world to help countries that have biological research programs for medical reasons, for example, to make sure that they are fully safe and secure.
My final question to you. The US CIRF report under your leadership has been highly critical of India when it comes to certain categories, whether it's freedom of speech or treatment of minorities. Is that an area that was covered in your bilateral meetings with Dr. Jaishankar? And if so, again, what was India's response to it?
We have an ongoing dialogue on both of our democracies and human rights, because as the world's two largest democracies, it's central to who we are. It's central to our identity. And in our own case, we've had, from day one of our own democracy, our founding fathers set as an objective to try to form a more perfect union, which is an acknowledgement that we're not perfect, we never will be, but it's in trying to do ever better on democracy, on human rights, that we make progress. And I think that's a shared commitment that both of us have. And when questions or issues come up, we discuss them directly, very openly, very freely. And I think we would hold each other to account when there are concerns. And that's, I think, typical of many of our conversations, and came up today as well. But the point is that we're engaging on these issues directly, as friends, as partners, and I believe and hope working to make sure that both of our societies continue to get stronger when it comes to our democracies and when it comes to human rights.
Secretary Blinken, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today and for this very candid conversation. Thank you.
Thanks. Very good to be with you. Appreciate it.
So that, of course, was an exclusive conversation that India Today had with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. We're slipping into a very short break. Stay tuned. News and updates will continue on the other side of this break.
Hola from yet another day at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Now, quick weather update. It's gotten much better outside. Sunny days are here in Barcelona, less chilly, but it's the opposite story inside the Fira here at the Mobile World Congress. A lot of the launches have already happened, so that excitement, that anxiety, that trepidation has sort of fizzled out here at MWC Barcelona. When I speak to some of the CEOs and some of the C-suite executives exclusively for Business Today, we found out that a lot of that action has been happening behind closed doors. And some of the biggest customer engagements, partnerships are all taking place here at MWC because this is a big one. It's back after a long hiatus with such scale and at such a scale here in Barcelona. There's nearly 80,000 attendees, several exhibitors, of course a lot of them coming from China and the US as well. So this has become a true meeting ground for all tech enthusiasts and for the tech business at large. Now, in terms of things that we've seen over here, we've seen a bunch of phones and a bunch of launches like the Xiaomi 13 Pro, the Realme fast charging device, a OnePlus concept device, which I'm not quite sure will ever be a reality, but let's see about that. But the real showstopper over the course of the past few days has been at this stall, the Motorola stall. It's the Moto Riser concept. Absolutely mind-blowing tech. Imagine rollable tech in the palm of your hand. We can only hope that this becomes a reality very soon. We showed it to you exclusively on the first day and of course on our social media channels. But now we have an exclusive hands-on with the device. Have a look. The Motorola Riser concept that we hope will soon be a reality. What makes this phone really special is the minute you give it a double tap on that side, the rollable display now expands to this. Tap it twice again. And like that, just like magic, it's back to this traditional form. Now, there's a lot of use cases for something like this. I think rollable displays are something which will work in the future. We've seen how foldables are really hotting up as a space, even in India and on tech today. We've seen the Oppo Find N2 Flip and the Samsung Galaxy Flip 4, the Fold. There's all sorts of devices here at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, but we have this concept phone in the flesh on tech today. There's also a few other things that this phone can do. For instance, if you flick it twice like this, and now it's just, well, the rear camera, and I want to suddenly start using the front camera. There you go, I flick it again, and here's the front camera. And if you notice, when I did that, this display was untouched. It rolled further out there, the camera is revealed, as is the earpiece. You flick it back again, and there you go.
Watching India Today.
Good morning and a warm welcome to India Today. I'm Paulami Saha. These are the headlines we're tracking at the top of this hour. Rahul Gandhi criticizes India at the Cambridge University, accuses the centre of spying on him, says Modi is hampering democracy in India. Quad huddle after G20 foreign ministers meet. Jaishankar chairs meet with Australia, Japan and the United States foreign ministers. China's Indo-Pacific moves top focus. US Secretary of State's big message to India. Adani Hindenburg is a private issue and it won't affect relationship with the US. Also says China COVID lab leak a possibility.
Not just